He's already played the vamp on Mary.
Legendary TV sitcom director Jay Sandrich worked with Betty White on The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
I had not really seen a lot of Maude, so I didn't know Rue as a performer. And she came in and read, and I thought, she is really good, but she's not right for this part. You just don't believe her. She's not, there's not an innocent bone in her body. So I said to her, would you mind reading the other part?
Oh, I said, okay, I'll do that. So I did. Of course, I'd already studied it.
Rue came back in and she was wonderful. She was just wonderful. I'm not saying she was as good as Betty or Betty was better, but this really, I knew she could do the part. And I knew deep down Betty could do Rose.
Betty and I are called in, and unbeknownst to her now, they want her to read Rose. She wasn't told this. So when they said, now we'd like to hear you read together, and you read Blanche and you read Rose, and she said, oh, Rose, oh.
She said, how could you do this to me? What? I've never read this. I don't know what to do. And I said, you'll do it fine.
Well, I knew who Blanche was, but I had no idea who Rose was. But Susan Harris said, Rose is so naive. She's totally naive. She never gets the double meaning of anything, no sarcasm.
And he's still interested. In what?
So she just off the top of her head began to create Rose. And I thought she was so perfect.
I've known plenty of women who have had strokes. Some of them are in very bad shape, but they're still ladies.
She was innocent, she was good, she didn't have a mean bone in her body, and the mistakes she made were mistakes that she didn't ever do deliberately. I really enjoyed her, because I had come off playing bitchy, rotten Sue Ann Nivens on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And then Rue took Blanche out into orbit where I would never have dared to go.
At our age, long engagements don't make sense.
The way I wanted her to be was a lovable and soft character, not hard and harsh the way she could have been. She was very self-centered and very selfish, but it was only because she was so insecure.
The last-minute switch worked. Producers cast Rue as Blanche and Betty as Rose. But there was no question in Tony Thomas's mind who should play Sophia, Dorothy's smart-mouthed mom. The producer was hooked the day he met Estelle Getty. The 61-year-old actress was just coming off a successful run in the Broadway comedy Torch Song Trilogy.
I was doing the casting session that day, and she read and was brilliant. And then the next day we did callbacks, and I couldn't be there because I had to be in post-production, and Paul and Susan were in the casting session. And I kept leaving notes and messages. If she doesn't do it right, have her do it again. I promise you she's the one.
How long is this story? I'm 80. I have to plan.
So I came running up there after the session, and I said, so what'd you think? She was terrible. And I went crazy. No, then you should have had her. He said, no, God, she was brilliant. And she was just perfect for the part.
I always said she'd missed her calling. She should have been a stand-up comic because she could tell very funny stories about her real life.
Because I'm the only one who comes from a first-generation American family. I'm first-generation American. So they like to hear all the stories about my family.
Just reduced me to tears. But that's not at all the way she played Sophia. She played Sophia in a completely different way.
It's me, Blanche. You look like a prostitute. Oh.
She just had this kind of, you know, this kind of attitude about her that I thought was very funny.
3 down, 1 to go. The crucial role of Dorothy remained open. For producers, there was only one woman who could play the divorcee who didn't mind sharing her opinions on just about everything.
My agent said, what's this about you're doing a new sitcom? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. It turned out the script called for a B. Arthur type.
In the 1970s, B. Arthur hit it big playing the ultimate liberal feminist, Maude Finley, on the sitcom Maude. The actress's booming voice and commanding presence made her ideal for the part of Dorothy. But B wasn't eager to return to the daily grind of a primetime series.
Well, I had reservations about ever doing another sitcom. I mean, I was very, very selective.
I know Elaine Stritch read for the role of Dorothy because she talks about it in her one-woman show. She tells a very funny story why she didn't get the role. She kind of rewrote a line in the script, and that's not really good idea with an audition.
The producers asked Rue McClanahan to help out. Rue co-starred with Bea on Maude.
I called Bea that very moment, and she said, "Rue, I'm not interested in playing Maude and Vivian meet Sue Ann Nivens." I said, "That's not it. I'm doing the Sue Ann Nivens part. I'm doing the vamp, and Betty's doing the airhead. She's doing the Vivian part from Maude. So it'd be quite different." "Oh," she said, "now that's very interesting." So the next thing we knew, she'd accepted it.
Rue and Bea had worked together before. There was a little hesitation on the network's part about putting the two of them in the show. And I remember saying, well, if we're doing a good show, 15 minutes, nobody will remember that they worked together in Maude.
Blanche, your friend Harry wants an answer tonight. What are you going to tell him?
I haven't decided. I guess I'll know when I hear it come out of my mouth.
You'll know when you hear it come out of your mouth. This isn't a belch, Blanche. This is marriage.
It was so funny. It was so bright. It was so literate. It was so adult that it never even dawned on me that these were elderly women. I just thought, God, what a hell of a piece of writing. And I will get off my ass again and go back to work.
With the key players in place, producers thought the Golden Girls were ready for a long run. But they weren't sure if the creative force behind the show would go along for the ride. In the spring of 1985, the Golden Girls pilot went into production. The 4 veteran actresses who starred in the show were a potent combination. Before taping even began, the chemistry between the ladies was obvious.
We sat down and we started to read. I can still get the feeling where your hair almost stands up. It was, you hit something over the net and you better be ready because it was coming right back over the net at you.
What a day. One sad person after another.
Rose, you work at grief counseling. What do you expect, comedians?
The first reading was breathtaking, I think is the only word I can use. But then working it, you know, we grew as we worked. Every day brought something new and something wonderful, you know. And I had been spoiled rotten from Maude, where the same thing pretty much existed.
On April 17, 1985, the cast gathered at the Sunset Gower Studios to tape the pilot.
It was like watching an all-star game. Again, we had one of the great pilot scripts ever written. We had one of the great ensembles ever put together for a series.
Marry Harry, marry Harry.
A little rhyme.
Knock it off, are you?
We shot 2 shows, you know, the dress show and the air show for the pilot. And the dress show was practically perfect.
Blanche was engaged to be married that afternoon in the house. And Betty, or Rose, knew that this guy was a charlatan.
My hunches are never wrong. Mrs. Gandhi would be alive today if she had taken my call.
And Dorothy would not let Rose tell Blanche what was really going on.
She's crying already. What's the difference?
Rose, pick that up.
Don't!
I'll be too long!
Stop!
It turned out that he was married to like 6 other women, and she finds out at the end of the show that, and she's crushed and heartbroken, but she's got her friends.
You're my family, and you make me happy to be alive.
That's what the show's going to be about. It's going to be about them sticking together in this friendship.
They hit a home run. These actresses were so prepared. They so knew that the audience would be with them. They had the audience eating out of their hand, and the audience screamed and they went crazy.
We just knew. We knew that we were in. I mean, we didn't even have to worry about ratings or everything. We knew that this was a smash.
The show was a big hit with the cast and the audience. But the producers and NBC brass wanted to do a little fine-tuning.
It was one of those pilots where you just know it's so good. Our only problem was length.
There was a gay housekeeper in the kitchen who was part of the regular cast.
Charles Levin played Coco, the gay housekeeper. Levin was fresh off a 3-year stint on the sitcom Alice.
But they realized some of our strongest scenes were around the kitchen table with just the 4 of us interacting, and to introduce somebody else out there would have changed that whole picture. So bless his heart, he was written out after the first episode.
Some of the scenes for the pilot had to be shot again, minus Charles Levin.
At that time, a lot